couldn't. I love the night. That's the only time I feel really alive.
That's what David wanted.
Blood, I was to find, was a necessity as well.
A vampire in love with a slayer. It's rather poetic. I am the monster the breathing men would kill. I am Dracula.
Good evening, my fellow vampire lovers. The sun is going down, and you know what that means. It's time for me to record another episode of my podcast, The Beautiful Dead. As always, I'm your host, Lena Nazari. Quickest way to find me or what I'm doing or message me or talk to me is on Instagram, The Beautiful Dead Podcast. That's where I'm the most active. For those of you that are on my mailing list, I don't know what's going on. It is not letting me access it. I can't send stuff anymore. So if you have followed me to the YouTube channel from the mailing list and you're wondering why I'm not updating, that's why. So that's where you really need to go to Instagram. Thank you to everybody who's been engaging and commenting and sharing things. It means so much to me. This is a labor of love, but it is a labor. It's a labor. It is a lot of work. You know, I work 2 jobs, plus the books, plus traveling, plus this. So this comes from my heart. So it means so much to me when you guys enjoy it as well. Juliet, I don't know what's going on with her. She's very antsy today. She's like in, out. So I just left the door open. So I apologize if you hear the tippity taps of Juliet's paws. Hopefully she'll settle down. Next to me, I have my pumpkin coffee because autumn sounds the same to me. Already decorating for Halloween. If you're not, what are you even doing? Do you even care? Do you even care about Halloween? Not like I do. This week we're talking about Kronos, Captain Kronos, Vampire Hunter. Not Kronos, the Guillermo del Toro vampire movie, but Captain Kronos, Vampire Hunter. And this was asked for by my friend Trav Lane, who has mentioned this to me so many times. And so when I threw it out there that you guys should give me some ideas, he did post it, he commented, so he got a spot. I finally watched it. I'm really excited. I've had so much fun in August watching the stuff you guys want me to watch. I've really had a good time with it. You know, sometimes I just randomly pick vampire movies and a lot of times they're not so great. So hearing what you guys like and what you guys want me to cover, I'm really enjoying. So this has been a lot of fun. I'll definitely do it again. I'm doing it in November, so if you want one of those slots, let me know. Let's talk about Captain Kronos, Vampire Hunter. I promise I won't keep saying the whole title, but let's do it. So this was released in 1979. I didn't know, but it was a Hammer film. So as soon as it showed up, I was like, oh, Hammer, welcome back to the podcast. And as you know, we do not address vampire crossovers when we do Hammer films because it's a very incestuous little bunch, Hammer horror. So we would just be talking about vampire crossovers all day long. So let's go ahead and let's get into it. We open on 2 beautiful girls in the woods. One is doing the other girl's hair as she admires herself in the mirror. The first girl decides to go pick flowers to braid into her friend's hair. And while she's away, we get a POV of someone who's coming up behind the second girl. The reflection in her mirror is a figure in a black cloak. She turns to face who or what is behind her. At first, she's terrified, but then she smiles. In the mirror, we see her embrace the cloaked figure, and then the girl screams. The second girl, who we learn is named Anne, returns but drops the flowers out of shock. A man on a horse, who we learn is Dr. Marcus, comes by and sees Anne just standing in the woods and staring off. So he dismounts and he approaches Anne, then looks to see what she's staring at. It's the back of her friend who's sitting against a tree. The man turns the girl around to show us that the beautiful young girl is now old. And then we get the standard Hammer credits with the music, and a man is on horseback and he's riding through the countryside, and then he's followed by a man on a horse-drawn carriage. This is Captain Kronos, Vampire Hunter. We know that from the title. The title already gave it away. And his trusty sidekick, Grost, who is kyphotic. Kyphosis is the medical term for what used to be called hunchback, which is just a horrible curvature of the spine. They do use the phrase hunchback a lot in this movie, but he is kyphotic. He has kyphosis. So now you guys have learned something. While traveling, they see a young girl named Carla who's in the stocks. And when she's asked what she did to deserve the punishment, she explains that she danced on Sunday. Oh no. Kronos cuts off the lock to set her free and then turns to leave. She chases after them and they tell her, get on the wagon and ride with them while they are headed east. We cut to a family who's celebrating a girl's birthday. Her name is Isabella, and her father gives her a beautiful bracelet and tells her not to worry about losing it because the lock is solid. She asks to go show it to her friend, and they tell her, yes, you can. She leaves the house as they caution her to return before dark, which it doesn't matter because we just saw the cloaked figure in the daytime. So she walks through the woods admiring her bracelet, and we see a dark reflection in the creek. She stops to pick flowers, and we see the figure is following her. It steps into her path. We hear a scream, and then it moves away to show the girl with a drop of blood on her lips as she falls to the ground. So you know me, I'm like already clocking all these little things as I'm watching. Now we're back with Kronos. Grost is telling Carla that Kronos used to be a soldier in the Royal Guard. They set up camp for the night. Grost is sleeping in the carriage. Kronos is on the ground, and Carla, they're just like, we only have 2 blankets. You're going to have to figure out where you're sleeping or how you're sleeping.
Where do I sleep?
We've only blankets enough for 2.
They're not very nice to her. Back at Isabella's, her father and older sister are waiting up for her when she stumbles into the house and collapses on the floor. They see it's an old woman who's wearing Isabella's bracelet, so they know it's her. The next day, Kronos, Grost, and Carla ride into town, and Kronos calls out for a man named Marcus. Marcus comes out and smiles. The men greet each other, and then they go inside, leaving Carla out by the carriage with the next door woodcutter. We see the carriage has wooden stakes and garlic flowers, so file that away. We learn that Marcus is a doctor, and he wrote a letter asking for Kronos to come quickly, but not why. Marcus tells Kronos that girls in the village are rapidly aging and then dying with blood on their lips. Grost explains to Marcus that it's the work of vampires.
Vampires.
What? No, it can't be.
What he doesn't know about vampirism wouldn't fill a flea's codpiece.
That it's commonly believed that vampires drain blood, but some vampires drain youth. In this world, there are different species of vampires with varying methods and motivations, and they can be killed in different ways. A stake to the heart doesn't work on all vampires. Some can only be killed by hanging or decapitation, some fire, some water. The cross only protects those who firmly believe. Some vampires can mesmerize, so if your mind is controlled at the time of the attack, it can affect your belief in God. That's pretty cool. The doctor has a hard time believing it, but Kronos and Grost say, well, you must have thought it was vampires already, or you wouldn't have called for us.
Vampires?
Oh, come now, Doctor. You had already reached the same conclusion.
Or why else send for us?
At Isabella's fresh grave, we see that she was only 17 when she died of old age. And her big sister stands over the grave and then leaves the cemetery to enter the chapel and pray. We see the shadow of the cross on the wall, but then the shadow starts to like move and warp. She rises from the pew and walks towards whatever is casting the shadow. Then a chalice of wine on the dais spills and the woman screams. Kronos and Carla are washing up and they're kind of flirting a little bit. And since he's shirtless, we can see that Kronos has a very nasty scar around his torso. He asks Carla if she'll be moving on, but she says she wants to stay with him. And she's like, if you'll have me. And he goes, I'll have you.
If you'll have me.
I'll have you.
Ooh, oh my. The town's church bell rings out and the hunters head for the sound. Carla joins, and this is when she learns that she has just joined 2 professional vampire hunters. They arrive to the chapel and they see that this young woman is now old and dead. Dr. Marcus is at the cemetery when a coach arrives and a man named Paul is visiting the grave of a man named Hagen, who apparently died 7 years prior. Paul goes to return to the coach and we see someone is in there, but she has gloved hands. Paul and Marcus talk. Marcus motions towards the person in the carriage and he says, "Oh, your mother still holds a grudge." And Paul says, "Well, my father did die in your arms." Marcus says, "It was the plague. Nothing could have been done." Marcus leans in to talk to the Lady Durwood when he sees that she's cloaked and the part of her face that's visible looks very, very old. Marcus offers to assess her, but Paul says, "She won't see anyone, least of all you." And then they leave. In the woods, Gorst puts a toad in a box and buries it with the help of Carla. They mark the spot by tying a red ribbon to the tree above it, and then we see that they have buried a lot of toads in boxes. Kronos is smoking when Marcus comes in. Kronos says they're preparing, so when the time comes, he's ready to act. Marcus touches the scar and says, "I see my needlework held up. I know you have guts because I've seen them." So now we know that they were in battle together. Carla enters the room that Kronos is in, so Marcus and Grost make themselves scarce to go play chess. She strips and approaches Kronos and they embrace. They do what adults do when they're left alone. And afterwards, he explains to Carla that victims have blood on their mouths because the vampire feeds with a kiss. That's pillow talk. Sexy, sexy. A woman named Mara and a man are making out in the woods, and I honestly can't tell from the sounds if she is into it or she's trying to fight him off. She breaks off the kiss to say that she swears she saw someone very old in the trees, but now no one is there. The man wants to return to making out, but she's like, no, I need to get home. You can't come with me or my father will see. And he's actually trying to do the right thing and walk her home, or at least like stay at the edge and watch her. And she's like, "Oh, I'll be fine. Don't be crazy. I'll see you tomorrow." And then she walks off. So we see her walking away through the woods, and then she kind of trips and falls, laughs, gets up, but she's like stumbling, almost like she's drunk. There's a moan, and then she collapses. He runs for her, sees her on the ground, and when he lifts her up, she's an old woman. Vampire pause. Okay, so we know the vampire is feeding through a kiss, and that they feed on life force, so they drain you of your youth. There's very little blood drinking in there, too. I mean, we see the blood on the lips, but obviously it's not a whole lot of blood. But what I really want to focus on here is how quickly it feeds. So the girl was down for maybe 5 seconds, and within 15 seconds, she was drained of 60 years of life. Plus, apparently the vampire can move very, very, very fast because he doesn't see the vampire coming or going. All right. Grost runs to the barn to tell Kronos there's been another attack, and this time there is a witness. At the scene, the girl is dead and covered in a white sheet, and she's getting her last rites or whatever. You Catholics can tell me. He's like swinging the incense and saying Latin stuff. And he tells them this boy is being questioned by Grost and Marcus, and he tells them about the old man that Mira said that she saw in the woods. Kronos waves at Marcus to join him, and they start digging up these dead toads in boxes that were buried earlier. One comes out alive. Apparently, if the vampire crosses the path of a dead toad, it will bring the toad back to life. I can safely tell you, I have never heard of that. Never heard of that. If that's a real thing, a real superstition, I don't know it. And I know a lot of the superstitions, but the dead toad in a box thing, I have never heard of that. I don't know where it came from. Please let me know if I'm missing some kind of like Slovakian, like, I have no idea. I've never heard of that. So this live frog tells them which direction the vampire fled from. So they go in that direction, and we see fresh carriage tracks on the road through the woods traveling in that direction. So they decide to follow the tracks and look for someone or something who looks really, really good since the vampire is just fed. So he says, look for cheeks with a fresh bloom. They follow the tracks, but it dead ends. So Marcus explains that down the road is a village. Kronos and Grost will go check it out, while Marcus stays behind to check out that area to see if he can find clues. But that's not really what he's up to, because as soon as they're gone, he rides off and heads towards what looks like a manor or a castle. So now we're in a tavern. Some men are talking about how Kronos is going around offering money to anyone that can help them track down a carriage. A very fancy man at the end of the bar asks the tavern girl if Caro is here, and she says he's coming down now. So down the stairs comes this man who's wearing boots, very similar to Kronos's, and he has a sword like Kronos, and he's smoking the same kind of black cigarette. So I think the implication is that he's too also a soldier or an ex-soldier. He's followed by two more men and then a young girl who he pays for her time. Then he picks a fight with a man at the bar, and so we can see Caro is like a total asshole. So he's like the town bully, I guess. Meanwhile, Marcus rings the bell at the manor and then lets himself in. Paul is inside, and Marcus says he was passing by. He wanted to say hi to Paul's mother. And Paul is like, I will tell her you came by. Like, clearly, I'm not going to let you see my mother. Then he offers them some brandy. We see that Paul is reading a book on witchcraft and necromancy. And Paul says, oh, it was my father's. I'm working my way through his library. Paul's sister Sarah comes into the room, and they talk about how great she looks. Dr. Marcus excuses himself as a bell rings in the house. Paul and Sarah go up to attend to their mother, who's speaking, but like her mouth is not moving. So I'm watching this and I'm just like, what am I looking at? At first I thought she was a corpse, and then I was like, is she wearing a mask? Anywho, we'll get back to that. Back at the tavern, Kronos comes in with Grost, asking if anyone has seen a wagon. Caro and his two men start a fight with Kronos, but he kills all of three of them before they can even pull out their swords. In the woods, Marcus hears his name called and sees a figure in a black cloak. He approaches, time stands still. And then it starts back up again, and then he emerges from the trees, and a single drop of blood falls on his glove, and he like kind of goes like this, and then rides off. Kronos and Grost are talking about what happened at the bar. Kronos explains that he thinks the men were paid to start a fight and kill them both, which means they're probably getting close to the vampire. Marcus returns to tell them that he visited the Durwoods but learned nothing useful, and we see that Kronos has leeches on his back for bloodletting, which, holy moly, I know that happened, but like just to see it, I was just like, this guy has got all kinds of weird little superstitions that I think are supposed to lead up to him being ready to fight a vampire, but I'm like, okay. As the night approaches, we see that they've hung ribbons with bells all through the woods, and they're waiting. A bell rings and Kronos goes to check it out. And we see a girl is walking through the woods, and she bends down to fix her stocking. And then she's attacked by a bat and dies screaming and bloody. Let's have a moment of silence, okay? For the basket full of eggs that were destroyed when the bat attacked. I saw that and I was like, do you know how much you would have to spend to get that many eggs right now? Simpler times. Anywho, the bat thing never comes back. So I don't know if that was one of the vampires, the vampire. It was just a random bat attack. No clue. Paul and Sarah are talking about how their mother doesn't eat anymore and she just lies there like something that's already dead. Paul assures his sister that will not happen to us. In the barn, Kronos and Carla are post-coital, and he tells her that when he returned from the war, his mother and sister were turned into vampires, and we see scars on his neck that he covers with his long hair. that one of the mother or sister, I think the sister, attacked him, and he had to kill both of them. The guy's got baggage. He's got baggage, okay? Marcus is shaving, and he realizes that he looks younger in the mirror, and he panics, and he runs for Kronos, telling him, "Look at my face." And then he pulls back his lips to expose 2 sharp canines on each side. Kronos knocks him out, and they tie him up. He comes to, and he begs them to kill him. And Kronos doesn't want to, but Grost is like, "You would want the same thing, and if we figure out how to kill your friend, then we'll know how to kill the master." So they decide to do it. They drive a stake through his heart, doesn't kill him. They create a noose and hang him, he doesn't die. So they light a torch and they're headed towards him when suddenly he turns old and dies. And they realize that his steel cross that was around his neck is shoved into his chest. So they're like, "Oh, it's steel." But while they're doing this, the neighbor, the woodcutter, is like watching through the window. So he thinks that he's just watched them murder the town doctor. Kronos and Gross go to the village cemetery to steal a large cross when the villagers attack. Kronos fights them all off, showing us once again that he's the biggest, baddest, best soldier ever. Gross pulls out the steel core from the cross and melts it down and turns it into a vampire killing sword while Kronos meditates. And I gotta say, this sword is sick looking. Like, it's so cool. And the idea that they melted down a cross to make the sword is like, it's very, very cool. Back with Isabella's family, her brother and her last remaining sister are all grieving their lost sisters. So I'm guessing like 1, 2, or all of the girls we've watched die all belong to the same family, which I somehow missed. And they said that their father has gone off. The door blows open and there's a cloaked figure. Kronos is in the woods and finds Isabella's father dead in the road as a carriage pulls by. He runs to their home, but it's too late because the last daughter is old and dead on the ground. Grost is burying toads when the carriage comes by, so he tosses one of the boxes in the path of the carriage. And when he opens it, the toad is now alive, so he knows that carriage belongs to the vampire. Sarah is visiting her father's grave when Kronos approaches, and he says his reputation was formidable, so I guess this man was also part of the war, also a soldier. She explains that was her father. He gives condolences. And then Paul calls Sarah away from Kronos and gives him a dirty look as they climb into the carriage and leave. There was like a very inappropriate feeling between the brother and sister. I didn't like it. I'm just going to say. Grost reminds Kronos that Marcus did go see the Durwoods before he was turned. So he's like, wait a second. That's the carriage. And Marcus went and saw them before he was turned. Kronos puts a cross necklace on, and Grost paints 2 crosses on the back of his neck. They place a ring of garlic flowers on each of his arms. He asks Carla, "Are you sure you want to do this? Because you're going to be the bait." And she is okay with it. Grost slides a small mirror up to the hilt of the sword. Kronos is handed his sword, and they are ready to do some vampire killing.
Time to kill a vampire.
Paul is trying to get his mother to drink something, but she won't, and I absolutely hate the makeup or the mask or whatever is on her. It's so unsettling. I really, really don't like it. Carla rings the doorbell, and Paul opens it just in time for her to faint into his arms. He carries her in as the men watch through the window. Paul slaps Carla awake and then hands her some liquor to sip. She explains that she was lost and scared. She ran away from her father and an arranged marriage. She asks, "Can I please stay the night?"
Please, if I could stay here just for tonight, sir, I beg of you.
"I'll just sleep on the couch," and the siblings are like, "That's fine." Then Sarah locks the front door and they all say their goodnights. Kronos throws a grappling hook up and climbs up the side of the manor. We see a shadow approaching Carla, and then we see that the figure is in a dress. Carla looks up into the vampire's eyes and is mesmerized, standing up, and then we see fangs. Kronos breaks through a window into the mother's room, and we see that, yes, she was wearing a mask. Sarah and Paul run down the stairs to see Carla in a trance, and their mother is young and beautiful. She explains that she was born into a family that I guess has like dark powers. I don't know, maybe. I thought she was going to say Karnstein for a second. I was like, is this another Karnstein story? But the family name that she says, I've never heard before. She explains she's born into this family. They have dark power. She also says that her father, their father is not dead. He comes out of a side room. He is the black cloaked figure that we've been seeing. She brought him back from the dead. Then she mesmerizes her children and says,
"You will remember nothing of what has passed here."
You will not remember anything that happened tonight. You're going to go to bed, wake up in the morning, and not remember any of this. That's an awesome power, by the way. If I become a vampire, I want that power. The two vampires approach the entranced Carla, and Lady Darwood says, the girl is for you to steal her youth, and then you'll be whole. He also bears fangs, but Kronos enters the room and stops them. Kronos uses the mirror on his hilt to show the lady her eyes, and I think she mesmerizes herself because then she's in a trance. Lord Durwood and Kronos sword fight as Grost enters the same window that Kronos did. Kronos loses his sword in the fight and has to grab one from the wall, and he stabs the Lord, but it doesn't matter because it's not a special sword. It's not a vampire killing sword. So the Lord doesn't even stop moving. Grost enters, throws the vampire killing sword to Kronos just in time for the captain to stab the vampire, who then dies. Then the lady is broken from her trance. She cries a blood tear when she sees him on the ground, and she moves like she'll attack Kronos, but he stabs her too. Like, boom, boom, quick. Doesn't even hesitate. I love it. Once she's dead, Sarah awakes and screams as the mask that's laying on the bed upstairs shatters. The lady becomes old and dies. Paul crosses himself, and we see that the two vampires are now skeletons. Kronos drops the sword. I'm like, dude, that's a great sword. I feel like you could definitely use it again, but he just drops it and walks out, followed by Grost and Carla. In the village, he says his final goodbye to his lost friend, Marcus. Then he says goodbye to Carla, who I guess is not staying with them. And he says, on lonely nights, I will think of you. And then he rides away with Grost. Credits. So before I give my final thoughts, vampire pause. Okay, so here's what I gather. They have fangs, but not all the time. The vampires can be out in the sun. They feed on youth through a kiss. They do cast reflections. There are different species that die in different ways. They bring toads back to life, I guess, when they cross their paths. They don't sleep in coffins. I don't know how they're made, but they can turn people because they turned Marcus. They're very fast and they kill quickly. Tropes I love and tropes I hate. Tropes I love. I love when there's different species of vampires. Like the idea that there's these different species that are all motivated by different things, feed in different ways, die in different ways. Love that. I also love a specialized vampire hunter trope. I don't like the idea of born vampires or certain family lines creating vampires. Like there's a gene for vampirism or whatever they're trying to do here. I don't like that. I think the implication is that she was like born with the vampire gene, but then at some point she has to like start using her vampire self. I don't know. It was very confusing. But let's talk about my final thoughts. This was way better than I expected, I'm gonna say. With Hammer, you don't know what you're gonna get. You could get something just absolutely horrible, Satanic Rites of Dracula, or you could get something that's amazing, Vampire Circus. So you don't know what you're gonna get, right? They do kind of all have the same sort of feel. It's really the storyline that makes the difference. This one was up there as far as enjoyment. I enjoyed it. The acting wasn't bad. The problem was the story. That's where the weakness lies, okay? I think they had a good idea. The idea of the vampires drinking energy is a great concept. The idea of the lonely hunter roaming the land, selling his service because he's broken, because of his backstory and his trauma. Love all of that. That's great. but the characters just weren't very well developed. And I feel like the story skips beats. Like, there's definitely things that I think should have been in between some of these scenes. The vampires have fangs, like they drink blood. However, we only see that we only see the victims old and then with a drop of blood on their mouth. We never see like the 2 bites on the throat. And I know that there's different species of vampires. So obviously the one that bit Kronos is the classic vampire, whereas these are youth feeding vampires. That being said, then why the fangs? And also why the drop of blood on the mouth? So he mentions that they drink through a kiss. So does the fang puncture the lip as they're kissing? So is it not even about the blood? Also, we see that the vampires are fast, but it's like too fast to even make sense. That's way too fast. There's no way you sucked out 60 years of life, bit a lip, and took off in a matter of seconds and nobody saw you. That doesn't make any sense. Also, why did the vampires wipe out an entire family? What did that family do to them? And why not take the time to let us know that family before you wipe it out? And what happened to the older brother with a crutch? Because we see the last daughter on the ground, but we never see the brother. Was he left behind because he's handicapped? Like, what? I'm so confused. What happened to the brother? Why do we never see him or his body? And also, are we supposed to believe that Paul and Sarah don't see that their mother is wearing a mask? It's like a latex mask. And so when she talks, like you can see the mouth trying to pull apart, but it can't because it's a mask. And so we're supposed to believe that they don't know that, or we're supposed to believe that that's makeup and she can transform back and forth. The whole thing, no, because the mask is in the bed when Kronos shows up. So I'm just like, okay, whatever. And what was the point of the bullies at the bar? That didn't make any sense. I think they spent so much time of this movie trying to show us what a great fighter Kronos is. Like, they had multiple fight scenes. Honestly, you could have just showed us once. You could have showed us one really good fight with Kronos and a bunch of guys, and then we would have known, oh, he's a really good fighter. You didn't have to show us like 3 or 4 of those. So you could have taken those extra scenes and grown the characters a little bit so we actually cared about them. But it's just like a bunch of swashbuckling. When Lady Durwood has her final monologue, she explains she's been working on this for 7 years. Working on what? So we know the dad died 7 years prior. Have you been slowly bringing him back over 7 years? Like, did he come back all fucked up and then it took 7 years of draining youth? Or it took 7 years to resurrect him? Like, I'm so confused. And also, then, what does your lineage have to do with it? What does your family have to do with it? I'm so confused. Overall, the movie felt like one of those Harlequin romance novels, you know, the little red novels that everybody read in the 80s and 90s. It felt like one of those. It was a swashbuckling, sexy soldier who fights vampires and saves women, and he's also great in bed, but then he rides off to be in the world alone because he's so broken inside and no woman can ever have him or hold him. There's nothing wrong with romance. Nothing. That's just what it felt like to me. But when it comes to the vampires, the writing was sloppy. They didn't have a clear picture of the vampires or the rules, and it shows. It shows. So, all right, that was Captain Kronos, Vampire Hunter. Thank you, Trav, for having me watch that one. Next week, we're going to be wrapping up viewers' requests with modern vampires, and then it is September, and I'm so excited. And then we're going to start the real stuff. The spooky season starts. Go onto my posts on Instagram or YouTube to see everything we're talking about in September, October. November will be viewer requests, and then in December I will be covering all of the underworlds. So the same way that we did all the subspecies over the course of like 6 weeks, we will do all of the underworlds in December. So join me for that. If you're excited, let me know. If you hate Underworld, let me know. I'd like to cosplay her at a con, but I don't think I'm ready for that. I don't. So if you made it all the way to the end, put Lady Killer in the comments, because Captain Kronos is a lady killer, but you know, he's dark too and brooding, and he has to live on his own. So all right, gang, I hope you're having a lovely August. Say goodbye to summer because it is almost over and I cannot wait. I'm so excited for long nights and dried leaves and apple cider and pumpkin patches. I can't wait. Let me know if you feel the same way. In the meantime, as always, I wish you wicked hugs and bloody kisses. Good evening.